Well, now Forbes' richest list is no longer just a man's world. A record number of female billionaires made the list this year, and more are doing it on their own.
Our local billionaire, David Friedman, co-founder of Wealthiest, the world's leading provider of wealth intelligence, is here to give us the who's who on the list. Welcome in, but first I have to ask you, what is wealth intelligence?
So wealth intelligence is really looking at open source information that's out there and the data and gathering it and analyzing it and then using that to have a picture of what wealth is doing in the world.
Do the wealthy like it or dislike it?
So, you know, some say, hey, I'm a lot more wealthier, and others say, hey, get me off the list, right? So it's it depends on who it is, really.
Right, but if it's public information, I mean, it's out there, so you're not doing anything wrong.
That's right.
Okay, so now there were a lot of wealthy people, obviously, on this list. Were you surprised by the number of women on Forbes' richest list this year?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is, let's pull back for a second. How many billionaires are there in the world? So there's 2,170. That's our data.
2,170 billionaires.
Okay. Right? So Forbes says there's 1,645. But we've got about 50% more in our database. But 13% of those are women. So there's 282 women billionaires in the world, and that's a significant amount.
Sure.
And so the more fascinating thing is when you get down to looking at who's self-made. So 18% of those are self-made, 17% are people who've taken their fortune and kind of inherited it and grown it, and 65% are basically ones who got it through other situations, inherited or widow,
right,
etc. And one other quick thing, the fascinating thing is if you look in places like China, 50% of the women billionaires in China are self-made.
Wow.
Because it's a whole new world.
That's right.
So 1 in 4 in the U.S. are self-made.
Well, I would like to make $1 billion. What woman, or should I say women, top the list?
So I think that's the easy one, right? It's the Walmart family. If you look at the Walton sisters, they're up there as well. You've got the also on the family side, you've got the L'Oreal family, mother-daughter trio in the top 10.
Christy Walton is worth $36.7 billion, and Alice is worth $34.3 billion.
It's a lot.
Oh, and then we're seeing, is it Liliane Bettencourt? She's from the L'Oreal family?
That's right. That's right. So it's interesting. You got on the top 10, you've got kind of these pairs of families up there, but that's not surprising based on the data I just told you.
Yeah.
Wow.
So these would be examples of people who had a lot of money and they just keep it growing.
Or more inherited. That's right. That's right. More
inherited and then they keep it.
Yeah.
The youngest billionaire this year was Perina Kai out of Hong Kong. She's 24 and she's a billionaire. She's the largest stakeholder in Logan Properties. So she kind of emerged. So talk about your billionaires, and you know, are you married or single there?
No, I'm married.
No, John's really interested in the subject. Okay, let's talk about Steve Jobs' widow. She made the list, but not because of the Apple fortune, which I thought was very interesting.
Well, obviously that's part of it.
Right.
I mean, there's multiple factors there. So yeah, I mean, Apple is her largest, I think, part of her net worth. But yeah, she's got other things she's taken in spiral. She's on the director of different boards, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, okay.
$14 billion.
Unbelievable.
Let's talk about more of the self-made billionaires, because we've talked a lot about the inherited. You talked about this young lady from China. Give us some other examples of self-made billionaires.
Well, everybody knows, obviously, Oprah, right? So
yes, where's Oprah? Where's our girl on the list?
She's done an amazing job with Harpo and her media company of taking that, and I think she's probably one of the most well-known in terms of leverage. There's some new emergence, though. For example, in London, there's a family, a brother and a sister who started an online betting company, and they've mortgaged that into kind of a whole billionaire, and they're young, and she's created that. So there's a few new interests in terms of self-made.
But you know, talk about self-made and Oprah, which is the name we all know. But how many billions, I mean, not to be crass, but compared to these people that have 30 to 40 billion, how many billions does she have?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting point, right? Because the names that we've been talking about, really, most people don't have no clue that they're 30 billion. But Oprah's such a public figure, and she's so democratized in her brand. Everybody knows who she is. But you're right, there's a massive gap between kind of the super rich and
Well, now, you talk about the super rich. What about those A-list celebrities that everybody hears about, like the Angelina Jolies and the Sandra? Are they even close to getting near this list at all?
You know, some of them get up into the hundreds of millions, and we just did a ranking of the top, I think, Oscar winners, you know, with Robert De Niro was up there. They're in the hundreds of millions, but certainly not billionaires.
Yeah, it takes a long time. That's a tough nut to crack.
No, it's true, but still, I mean, when you relatively look at it, you think, wow, they're rich, but then these billionaires are really rich.
How do you think this list is going to look 5 years from now?
More women. So, and that's
All right.
great. It's a great thing, right?
Yes, that's right.
I think, you know, if you think about the whole lean in movement, right, and Sheryl Sandberg and what's going on, right? So there's a lot more women entrepreneurs. There's a lot more, probably more importantly, there's women who are successful like Sheryl Sandberg that are going to start investing in other women, I think.
Yeah.
And you're going to see a lot more women entrepreneurs. That whole ecosystem of women and venture capital is going to continue to evolve. And so the women who have kind of broken through the ceiling are going to create that, I think,
other women.
to create that for other women. Yeah. It's also interesting, obviously, in light of Hillary Clinton's comments this week, right? So, so I think we're going to see more and more of that.
Well, I'm available for investment if any of these women would like to come here.
I was disappointed they didn't play the final countdown by Europe when I walked up.
Well, David Friedman, we appreciate it. David Friedman is the co-founder of Wealth X. Thanks so much. Really interesting stuff.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.